If you're not prepared at the right opportunity, people would say you're unlucky. But if you were prepared and you got to take advantage of the opportunity, then you're lucky.
Bradley is a dynamic entrepreneur and CEO of LightSpeed VT, a cutting-edge virtual training platform that helps businesses train their teams faster and more effectively.
You think you can do it all yourself, like move, I'll do it.
You can't scale that.
You can't, and you can't scale chaos. The more hands you shake, the more money you make. Relationships are where all money comes from. So if you want more money, you need more relationships. We'd be somewhere and the people were wanting pictures and he was like getting celebritized. And I'm like, damn. I watched how he converts that attention into revenue. And I'm like, dude, I need to do that. Ultimately, if someone can get this down, they level up big time. Because if you don't think you're lucky, then I don't want you around me.
Okay, so everybody wants to know. Who in here, raise your hand if you've ever been to Mr. Lee's office up in Vegas. Raise your hand. You've ever been there? Raise your hand. Okay, so you walk in, there's all these rhinos. Just big rhinos, small rhinos. I'm like, this guy's got a complex about rhinos. Why the rhinos, man? What's behind that?
Well, I think it's because A, they got thick skin.
Ooh, okay.
And I think you need thick skin. And I just identified with them at one point when I was at a sales conference and everyone was picking animals.
Really?
Yeah, and everyone was saying, I'm a lion. I'm an eagle. And everybody was picking all these, majestic animals. And they got to me and I just read Rhinoceros Success.
Yeah.
So I said, I'm a rhino.
You're a rhino.
Yeah, and then that was it. It was just picking something everyone wasn't picking.
Yeah.
But then someone got me a rhino because I loved rhinos. And I'm like, I don't really love them. But they thought I did. So they got me one. Then they got me another one. And then I started reading more about them. And it's like, you ever try and stop one?
I've never been in front of a rhino.
Would you?
It depends on what type of weapon, but
the answer
could
is
be trouble.
no. You would not try to stop one. Barehanded.
Yeah, probably.
So they just represented being unstoppable and thick-skinned and all around bulldozer.
Yeah, you got like a rhino tattoo on you.
Yes, I do.
A big one.
I have a big horn.
Big horn. No, he loves rhinos. He loves rhinos. Okay, so would you say you consider yourself a lucky person?
Very.
And if you do, what does luck mean to you?
I believe I'm very lucky. And it means that I am blessed and favored and always in the right place at the right time.
What causes you to be in the right place at the right time? Is that luck or is that divine intervention? Or is that maybe skill?
I think it's both.
Okay.
I mean, obviously, luck is when preparation meets opportunity because if you're not prepared at the right opportunity, people would say you're unlucky.
Yeah.
But if you were prepared and you got to take advantage of the opportunity, then you're lucky. So I guess, the cliche is when luck meets, preparation meets opportunity, that's luck.
Yeah.
But in reality, I think luck is just favored, blessed. And that's me.
So divine intervention. So and I've heard you ask that question when you interview people. Why?
Yes. Because if people don't think they're lucky, am I supposed to talk to them or you?
You just talk to whatever. You can talk to them. You can come back here. You can go over here. You go left, right, whatever you want.
I think I ask people that because if you don't think you're lucky, then I don't want you around me.
What if you were interviewing me a long time ago and you're like, hey, do you consider yourself lucky? And I'm like, I think you create your own luck based on your skill level that puts you in opportunities that most people don't get.
I'd have said hired.
Okay, well, I'm just checking, in case this thing doesn't work out.
Yeah. I'll hire you.
Trying to cover my bases.
What if I did hire you? What would that do for you?
Oh, stop. We got to work on your tone. We got to work on your pacing. Got to sound more real. So here's what I want to ask you. I heard about your daughter, Chloe, when she was 2, almost drowned.
Yes.
What happened?
She almost drowned.
Well, what happened?
Again, I think she did drown.
Hey guys, Jeremy Miner here. A lot of you guys keep asking me really, really good questions in the comments on how to sell more. So the easiest way to actually get a hold of me is to actually text me way faster. So 480-418-6755. So text me at 480-418-6755, because here's the deal. I started this sales training company to help you finally master sales and persuasion once and for all, which is, I know what you want to do. So text me, and then let's get back to the show.
You know, I don't know who's spiritual or not, but I was flying at 35,000 feet heading to Dallas for a keynote. And all of a sudden, and I don't like do the internet. When I'm on a plane, I just like, you know, chill.
Yeah.
So I get a FaceTime from my 9-year-old.
On the plane?
Yeah. Just
like 30,000 feet up in
my
the
phone
air?
just starts going off and it's a FaceTime, you know, and I'm a rebel. So
How's
I
that even
figured I'd
possible?
answer it. I don't know.
That's interesting. Okay.
But I'm a rebel. And I said, you know, screw the rules. So I just slid it over there. Yeah. And I see her crying her eyes out. And all she said was, Dad, Chloe was in the pool. And then the call drops. And then I'm like freaking out, of course. Yeah. And then my wife FaceTimes me. And when I flipped it on again, there she was, eyes bawling, white face, never seen her look like that. And she said the same thing. Babe, Chloe was in the pool. And then boom, the call drops.
Oh my God. So
I'm like freaking out thinking she's dead.
Yeah.
I land, I call my wife, and she's bawling still. And she was just saying, and I couldn't understand her. So I said, you know, speak. And she said, well, Chloe was in the pool. And I heard a baby crying. So I'm like, well, who is crying? And she said, Chloe. And I said, well, then what's the problem?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, but what happened
That's
was,
what guys would do, yeah.
Yeah, because we have cameras around our house. So what happened was they were out swimming in the pool. They went inside, and the pool's right out our back door of our master bedroom. So my wife went in to take a shower, get the girls' chlorine off and all that. And she was washing her hair, and Chloe was standing next to her in the shower. And then she said, just something in her head said, where's Chloe? So she opened her eyes and she wasn't standing there. So she looked around the wall, because we don't have like doors. There's just a big wall with a shower on it. And so she looked around and the back door was open. Okay. So she obviously ran out there buck naked.
At 2?
No, not Chloe. Chloe was already back there.
Well, okay, your wife. Okay, I'm just saying, how did Chloe get out the back door?
But my wife being buck naked just tells you, like, she saw the back door open and just ran right from the shower out to the back. Because in the camera, she walked out and jumped in the pool buck naked.
Did you play the replay?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I knew that. Okay. God.
So anyway, apparently, according to my wife, because I wasn't there, she was like close to the bottom of the pool, eyes open, mouth open, blue, and just looking up, basically. My wife said she looked dead, like gone. So she jumped in, picked her up, got out of the pool, and she just started crying.
CPR? She'd do CPR? What would she do? Okay.
She just started crying. And then the crazy part is, for like 2 weeks, she just kept saying, Yahshua, Yahshua, Yahshua.
That's what I asked you. Was that luck or divine intervention?
Both. But the crazy part is she told me that because, I mean, you know, if you guys follow me at all, you know his name wasn't Jesus, right? Yeah, so his real name was Yahshua. Well, that's what it was. We gave him the name Jesus. Yeah. A man gave him the name Jesus. His name wasn't Jesus. It was originally Yahshua, and then they couldn't supposedly translate it to Greek and all these others, so they made it Iesus, which is now Jesus.
Yeah, from the Greek New Testament.
Yeah, but they changed it. It's like when a Chinese guy comes here and you can't pronounce his name, we say, we're calling you Bob.
Sure, I get it. It's the principle, though.
But that's what it is. They just made up a name. His name wasn't Jesus.
Well, what his name would be in Greek, wouldn't it?
Nope.
There wouldn't be a version of Greek. That's why they...
If you were Chinese and your name was would your name be Bob in American?
Well, it depends on how close the dialect from Greek to
no
Jewish for Arabic is?
First of all, names are phonetic. That means like if I say your name's Unau, that's your name. Now the question is, how do you spell that?
Sure.
So the letters just try to get you to make the sound of your name. Your name is a sound. It's not a word. So whatever your name is the same in any language. Now, some people can say, no, in Spanish, my name is Miguel. No, in Spanish, if your name is Michael and that's your name because it's a sound.
Yeah.
That's just how they pronounce your name. But at the end of the day, his name was Joshua. So she just kept saying Joshua, Joshua. And
Really?
and I said, well, record it next time. And she recorded my daughter in the bathtub just saying Joshua, Joshua, Joshua. And then my wife's like, what's that? She said, my friend. And then she said, Joshua? She said, yeah. Then she said, I saw him. I can play you the video and let you see it. And people are like, wow.
So is this was a few years ago? Yes. Or when was this? 1 year ago. So how did that change you? How did that change maybe your perspective in life or maybe recommit you to something? What happened?
Well, I'm always seeking to see, what's real, what's not real, what's the truth, what's not the truth. And so that kind of, told me that, there is a creator.
Yeah. I would say it'd take a lot more faith to believe that there's not a creator in my mind. You think about a woman's reproductive system, just that alone, how complex that is. How complex
I think of that a lot.
Well, yeah, I'm just saying, yes, you do, of course. I'm just saying that's a pretty complex thing. So that thing happened by chance. I think it takes a lot more faith to believe that it just all magically happened.
100%. Yeah. I mean, obviously.
Yeah. Well, let's get into some business. What's, maybe people look at you and they're like, oh, Brad's so awesome. He's so cool. Like, what's one thing that maybe you struggle with that people just don't know you struggle with? The real Bradley. What does a real Bradley struggle with?
Pass. Come back to that. I'd have to think only because
you really thought about it.
Well, I don't consider things struggles. So I struggle becoming a billionaire.
Sure.
I mean, what everybody kind of struggles with, but like I see struggle as opportunity. So it's like hard for me to think, what do I struggle with?
What's something you struggled with that you turned into an opportunity maybe?
Well, I struggle with like leadership.
Okay.
I have a hard time like giving people hugs and praise falsely. So like I'm studying right now leadership so I can become a better leader.
Where does that come from in life?
Well, because if I'd have built a team this whole time, I already would have been a billionaire. I would have raised money for my SaaS company and I could have exited for $1 billion several times in the past. And I still can, but I need a team.
Yeah.
Because, you think you can do it all yourself.
Yeah.
And when people are like average,
yeah,
you're like, move, I'll do it. Instead of just building.
Can't scale that.
You can't. And you can't scale chaos. So my struggle has been building a team, leadership.
Yeah.
But I'm getting better at it. I'm starting
Well, that's what I love about you, right? You're obviously smart. And I love, entrepreneurs like you because when you see something that maybe you're not as great as you could be, you want to do something about changing it quickly, right? Time goes by quickly, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, leadership's a real thing. I used to think it's just a weird word, like leadership. What does that even mean? Leadership. I'm the boss.
Yeah.
That makes me the leader, but that's not true.
Yeah.
And one time Jocko Willink was in the building and I hadn't read his book, but I skimmed it. And he says there's no bad teams, only bad leaders. And I'm like, dude, you're full of shit. I said, because I got one. And I'm a good leader, and I got a shitty team. So I didn't really understand it. Then I read his book, and then I'm like, I get it.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, if you have a bad team, who's the leader? Well, you are. Yeah. Well, then how do you have a bad team? Because like a leader would not allow that.
Yeah. They
would, get rid of people, develop people.
Make the moves.
Yeah. So, I mean, there is no bad teams. There's only bad leaders. If you have a bad team, get rid of the leader, get a good leader, and your team will follow.
A good leader is going to build them into the identity of a good team,
Yeah.
right? What the identity of people who make a good team actually believe and actually do. So how did this whole concept with LightSpeed actually start? Like, 20 some years ago, like how did this idea come into your mind? Like I always look at you as a forward thinker, right? Like creating courses, all that stuff 20 some years ago, LMS wasn't really like, people weren't really doing a lot of that. So how did
There wasn't any of it.
How did that get in your mind?
Yeah, so I was working at a car dealership.
Mm-hmm.
I was plucking people out of landscaping jobs, Burger Kings. I was just teaching people sales and closing, turning them from minimum wage.
Were you like a GM there? Or what do you?
Yeah,
okay,
well,
gotcha.
GSM.
Okay,
The GM wasn't there, so I was technically the GM, but
makes sense.
they wouldn't give me the title.
Yeah.
So long story short, I got really good at training people how to perform, at least at the car dealership.
Mm-hmm.
And at one point, I helped this kid in the back, was a lot porter, minimum wage, good dude, good family, really nice, good dude, but he was broke and his family was broke. And they struggled financially. So I told him, let me put you up front and teach you how to sell. And he didn't think he could and had the wrong mindset, had no skills, and he had no habits, right? So I moved him up front and watched him go from minimum wage to 15, 20 grand a month and watched what it did for his family and him. And I thought, man, I got the ability to help people. I'm going to quit this job and I'm going to go train people. And so that's what I did. And so I went out on the road and it wasn't working anymore. And I couldn't figure out, how is this?
What do you mean it wasn't working anymore?
Like I couldn't get anybody to produce.
Oh, when you were training, like, were you training like other car dealerships? Is that what kind of? Okay. So you were training the same thing, but wasn't working for them, even though it worked for that guy.
And it worked for everybody else. And so I thought, what was I doing? I don't understand. Like I thought it was just my magical words.
Yeah.
And so I realized that when I worked at this organization, I was delivering the content, which you need. You need good content.
Yeah.
Then you need repetition.
You're talking about 4 components of real training.
Then you need practice.
Yeah.
Then you need accountability. And
hey, this is a writer downer. Go through this thing. 4 components of what training means.
Yeah, real training. Because if you don't have good content, repetition, practice, and accountability, it's not training. It's just exposure. And most people are just exposing people to information, and they're expecting them to train.
Yeah, they're a dabbler.
But when you really train somebody, like the military, if training was watching a video, they'd say, watch this and then go to war.
Or a workshop and then go to where you're good.
Exactly. So I realized that I needed to deliver the information with repetition, practice, and accountability. And I didn't want to live in a hotel and keep doing it over and over. And it ultimately was just going to be another job for, out on the road.
So what you're saying is you're going on the road, you do these 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, maybe all day workshops. And what percentage of that can their brain really retain within a week, within 30 days, within 2 months?
Well, I wasn't even there that long. I was there for a day.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You're there a whole day. How much of that are they going to retain within 2 days? Brain science says less than 19%.
Yeah.
2 days later.
That must be true because it didn't work. And I was thinking like this is crazy.
You might get an uplift because they're a little bit excited. They've got a few new things, but a few days later, they've already forgotten 80%. Within a week, it's down to 9%. Within 30 days, less than 3%. That's why you can never master anything by reading a book.
Yeah. So I wasn't that smart. So I said, man, I got to figure this out. And then there was this thing out called the internet.
Okay.
And I thought, well, I keep saying the same thing. The only thing changing are the faces. So what if I just recorded what I said and then put it on the internet?
Yeah.
So they could deliver it with repetition. And then they could practice and we could track them. So there's accountability.
Okay.
So I kind of invented LightSpeed, which was the first LMS ever.
Just like a bunch of videos?
There was they were interactive videos.
Interesting.
Because in person, I would ask questions, and based on what they said, I would respond differently. So I built interactive video.
Okay.
And then I had tracking, and then it started to work.
Okay.
And so I'm like, all right, cool. This is cool. I'm gonna be a millionaire. So I ran around and I'm like, buy this. And then I started running into the people with bigger names and bigger brands.
Yeah.
And
what year was this, by the way?
Like 2000.
2000. Okay. Yeah. Who were the big brands in sales training back in 2000? Like Brian Tracy,
Zig Ziglar,
Tommy Hopkins.
Tom
Yeah.
Hopkins,
Yeah.
some guy named Tom Stuker, Grant Cardone, Joe Verdi.
Okay. Joe Verdi, the car guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and that's mainly what I was kind of focused on. So it was
Yeah.
mostly car brands.
Yeah.
And so I started selling the dealerships my training system,
Mm-hmm.
and it was working. And then I just ran into too many people that already fell in love with these other people.
Okay.
And I said, well, what if their content was in this system? They said, oh, if it was them, we'd buy it. And I said, oh,
okay.
I said, hold on a minute. Let me go close the people that teach you to close.
Okay, so somebody tells you this, you get this idea like, oh, I'll just get Brian Tracy in here. I'll get Tommy Hopkins in my thing. So a light bulb moment went on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I just went and started closing the experts and told them where the customers were. And I just said, all I want is a little piece for the niece, little fraction of the action, little tad for Brad,
The tap for bad. So you've had Cardone on your
little
platform.
slice because I'm nice.
Slice because I'm nice. See this guy, this slick guy. So you get Tony Robbins. You get Tony Robbins on there. You get Brian Tracy. Love Brian. Good friend of mine. Tommy. You get some of these guys on here. How did you get them on there? How did you convince them?
Well, I closed.
These guys got big egos.
I said,
They got big
what
egos.
would
So
it
what did
feel
Brad
like?
do to? What did Brad do? What did Brad do? And what did Brad do to get them on board?
I basically demonstrated that they could make a bigger impact with less time and effort.
Don't have to travel. You're solving a big problem 15, 20
Grant
years ago.
Cardone at the time was about ready to get divorced.
Yeah.
He just had a baby. He's out on the road 300 days a year. His
Yeah.
wife's getting ready to leave him.
Yeah.
Barely got her in the first place. And so ultimately,
There's more to that.
He I just showed him a better way
Well,
to
they're on
do
the
it.
road three weeks out of every month. So that's how sales trainers, even probably 10 years ago, were really building their brand 10, 15 years ago. Because even when COVID happened, I had started my company right before COVID. People were coming to me on podcasts because we were just virtual from the very beginning. They're like, I don't have any work. I don't have any workshops. Like, these are pretty big names in sales training. And they're just like, we don't have anything going on. I asked Brian Tracy about 6 years ago, I said, what's the biggest regret that you had with your business? He's like, for 25 years, I was gone 3 out of every 4 weeks of the month. So I didn't know my family. Now you just go live on Instagram.
Yeah, and during COVID, anyone on LightSpeed could claim that no one's ever gotten COVID through LightSpeed.
Yeah, that's true. True. COVID free here. We're a COVID free zone.
You know Alan Ram?
I don't. What's he do?
He was a sales trainer.
Okay. Was?
Yeah, was. He died.
Oh, okay. Well, okay.
But his LightSpeed system paid his family for still to this day. It's been like 7 years.
What do you think it's going to be like in 10 years from now? Like, getting in with AI and stuff. Let's say, God forbid, something happens to somebody that, Tony Robbins or whatever. 10 years from now, what do you think AI is going to be able to do where it doesn't really matter if you're here or not?
What do I think?
Yeah. Like AI version of Tony. Let's say passes away in 10 years, God forbid. Where do you think AI is going with that?
They'll just recreate them.
Yeah. How? I'm genuinely curious. Like, what you see. Like, I've heard people say, like, hey, in 5 years, we won't even have to show up to do a keynote training. Just your hologram will show up and do it for you. People won't even know the difference. Do you believe
they'll
that?
know the difference, but
But do you believe they'll feel it's real?
Yeah, I mean, you've seen like Tupac on tour, haven't you?
Yeah,
the hologram.
I got to watch that tonight. I missed the Tupac tour.
Well, when you see the holograms that they do of these people that have passed,
okay,
it looks like they're actually down there on the stage.
No shiz. Have you guys seen that? I didn't know that existed. Well, I'm Googling that tonight.
Yeah, and then you can have a real person and a hologram sitting there talking to each other, and if you're far enough back, you can't really tell. You can't even tell.
Yeah.
So it's coming for sure, where you'll be sitting there having a conversation with Abraham Lincoln. The question is do you find any validation in that? Because obviously it's a hologram.
Yeah.
That's why I think building a personal brand is very important.
Yeah. What's one thing that you see people do like huge mistake that people do when they try to build a personal brand. Because you get a lot of people that come through Lightspeed, right? They build a course, but doesn't mean anybody's going to know about it unless you build a brand. So what's like a huge thing you see them do wrong that you see over and over again?
They try to make content rather than be the content.
What does that mean?
That means they're trying to say things that they think are going to make them sound good, rather than, like when most people turn on the camera and then they say what they say and then the camera goes off. That's when the camera should go on, when they're being real.
Okay.
But the problem is you got people that are racists and they don't want to share that. They're chauvinists. They're all kinds of bad vibes, bad energy.
Yeah.
And they won't leave the camera on because they don't really want the truth out there.
Well, there's a lot of people out there that say they're experts, but you and I both know that they are not experts. They're just copying content, claiming they're experts. You talked to me in there about with the power of AI, eventually, maybe even soon, you're gonna be able to go in there, create a course around XYZ using, Jordan Peterson's book on XYZ, and that person now has a course. So how do you tell the fakes from the real?
Usually their track records.
Yeah, true.
Their income statements.
Yeah,
their
that
taxes.
could be true. Yeah.
But really just their track record.
Yeah.
I mean, if you've done it, then obviously.
Well, I think that's what's going to happen, right? Because AI, you're going to be able to do that. You can create any course of any content, whatever.
Yeah,
you
I'm already
want.
doing it.
Depends on if it's licensed or not. There's some things that have to be licensed for them to know.
Yeah, I made my version of n.e.p.q.
Yeah, you don't have a license agreement, so it wouldn't be our paid training. It'd be like
No.
stuff.
I just told ChatGPT, hey, make Jeremy Miner's course.
We've already tried
but
that.
don't use n.e.p.q. Use my acronym, which is real. I said, I want the same ass philosophy. I said, change it enough so I can't be sued.
Oh, okay.
And it went, you want a PowerPoint with this?
Oh,
you
God.
want a workbook?
They'd have to base it off free content, though. There's no license agreement. ChatGPT doesn't have a license agreement with us. They can't steal our paid content.
Oh,
That's
yeah,
our
they
advanced
can.
stuff. How? How can they steal my paid content? They have no access to it.
What do you mean, dude?
They have no licensing agreement.
Dude, your shit's out there.
No, not the paid stuff. There's no way they have our paid stuff.
You
There's
don't
no
think
way.
anybody in your paid stuff has shared it with the world?
Like our inner circle stuff, fundamentals.
All
it just
of
depends
it,
on what
every
it is.
last bit of it.
No, they don't. There's no way.
I'll bet you.
How much you want to bet?
How much you want to bet?
I don't know. So a year's worth of training, our advanced inner circle program, you're talking hundreds of hours. Just like, here go. I'm going to upload it in ChatGPT.
If it's online?
We have attorneys that monitor that shit all the time.
Yeah,
man.
I know.
All the time.
We have what's called a takedown czar.
Pirators, all that stuff. People that pirate your
Yeah,
stuff.
we have
like
like
they
what's
get
called
sued
a
quick.
takedown czar. All
Yeah.
they do is monitor for that shit.
Oh yeah,
But it's
We do
out
that all
there.
the time.
And there's people that go into those programs and then share it. And again, I mean, pull out ChatGPT and say, tell
There's
me what's
one
in.
thing with sharing it, and actually the second thing, and actually understanding it. Two very different things.
Very different.
Yeah,
and
very
but it's also a personal brand.
Yeah,
See, so you've built a personal brand, and I think everyone should.
sure.
The problem is most people won't because they're too worried about what everybody else thinks.
Yeah,
So that's another
Inferior
mistake people
complex,
make.
yeah.
There's no authenticity. They're trying to make it instead of be it.
well, they don't have the expertise.
They haven't
And
done
Tony
the work.
Robbins said it best. It's like so many people try to I want to be wealthy so fast. I want to do all this stuff, but they don't have the wisdom and expertise because they haven't been long enough. Their track record is not long enough. I mean, who says to be an expert in anything, you have to have a minimum of what, 10,000 hours? There's people out there that do something for 6 months or a year. Now they're starting their own thing. How are they an expert?
That's because there's a market for it. So
Yeah.
all you have to do is pretend.
Yeah, but eventually you get found out.
It's not the truth.
Eventually you're going to get found out. Yeah,
They always do.
they always do, baby. It always
And a lot of
always
times
comes home to roost.
they get found out and then put in jail.
Yeah, that could be trouble. So, what are you seeing with the FTC? With one industry we train is the high ticket industry, the training industry, the coaching industry. Right? You're in that too.
Not
with
really, though.
With other industries, you got a lot of other industries, right? It's one of the industries that we train. What are you seeing with the FTC? What are you hearing?
Nothing.
Nothing.
What are you hearing?
What do I hear? Oh, now interviewing me. I like that. Well, I think a lot of people are probably not very compliant. So we always have a rule in my company that we say real numbers because maybe the IRS or the FTC might be listening. And, unless you want to, I love the entrepreneurs that say they're doing this much. And I'm like, would you be saying that if the IRS was interviewing you?
Yeah, you mean false
Yeah.
claims.
Yeah, false claims. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean,
Yeah.
there's a lot of false claiming going
Yeah.
on.
I think people see through it for sure.
Yeah, there's a lot that do, but believe it or not, there's a bunch that don't because they see you in front of a Lamborghini and think you're cool. So I'm going to buy
Lambos are like alien ships. I got friends that drive them. I just think they look like alien ships. That's just me. Why do you drive a Ferrari?
Have you driven one?
I actually haven't. I've never driven a Ferrari.
That's why you don't. If you
I'm
did,
not cool
you'd-
like you,
if
man.
you did, you'd be driving one. They're refined machines.
Yeah.
I think Lambos are like new money and Ferraris is like old money. Like if you've had money for a long time, you don't buy a Lamborghini.
Yeah.
You buy a Ferrari.
You buy a Ferrari.
Yeah. I mean, that's
Money.
just,
Hey, money talks, wealth whispers.
that's right.
Yeah.
But Ferraris are just like, go drive one. You'll want one.
Okay. I have to try
Andy
it out.
Frisella, you guys know who that is? So Andy Frisella, he has the best car collection I've ever seen.
What's he got?
Everything. Ford GTs, Bugattis, Rolls Royce, old cars, new cars. Like, dude, he's got the best of everything.
He likes cars. The
He
Budweiser
likes
family
cars.
in St. Louis, you know what they drive?
No,
Suburbans. About it.
that's
Toyota.
it. That's it.
Billionaires. Yeah, they don't drive any luxury cars at all.
Never.
Crazy. I don't know.
They probably went through that stage.
Maybe, yeah. Because at the end of the day, after you have a bunch of cars for a while, it kind of gets kind of boring, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah. It's
It
like, who
does.
cares?
I'm starting to get to the level where, like,
Yeah, whatever.
about ready to get rid of the ghost.
It really does. Yeah. What are you gonna
But to me, Andy's collection is like off the charts. I mean, Andy's richer than people know.
That's good.
I think his net worth is like 2.2 billion, and he's
That's
never
amazing.
once said he's a billionaire. But
Money talks, wealth whispers.
But he said he didn't have any Ferraris, and I'm like, why don't you have any Ferraris? And he's like, screw Ferraris, dude. They're so freaking stuck up. And he was like mad because like they control their inventory. You can't just buy one just because you want one. They gotta like, it's okay. And
Yeah.
if you buy one and then sell it without their permission, you can't buy another one. So he didn't like that.
Yeah. Why
And
do they
then-
do that? They think that makes them more sales?
Yeah, it keeps the value.
Okay.
So
Makes sense.
so now he's got like the La Ferrari, all the best Ferraris he's got.
Okay.
And I said, dude, I just saw a Ferrari. What'd you do? And he goes, oh, dude, I just had to get one. He drove one. I mean, he's a real car enthusiast.
Hey, you're influencing him now. So let's talk about influence. I think that's why a lot of you are here in business. We could talk about aliens. We could go down the rabbit hole here. We got a lot of stuff. Anybody ever heard me and him talk on his podcast?
Did we talk about aliens?
We talk about outbound leads, then we're talking about the spirit world, then we're talking about aliens, then we're talking about getting somebody's guard down, all in like 10 minutes. This is what I like.
I asked him about how he does his hair, and he said, well, I do it in 2 parts.
Yeah, 2 parts there. Why do you do your hair?
Why?
How do you do your hair? You're just jealous of my hair.
Oh, I blow it dry.
You blow it dry.
Yeah. And then I put some
I
some
could
sort
already
of shaping
I could already
paste.
tell. I already know how you do your hair.
How?
You put paste in it,
Yeah.
and then you comb it out. That's all you do.
I don't comb.
You brush.
I haven't brushed it or
You do
combed
something
it.
with it.
I finger it.
Oh, God.
I
don't
do.
know
I mean,
about
I haven't
that.
used a comb or a brush in like,
you got something there, but you're a paste guy. I can tell you're a paste guy.
yeah, it's like this little
You're the paste guy. I got
white
it.
pasty shit.
I got it.
And then I just go like this.
There's levels to this ball game.
Yeah. And then I'm done.
So you always recommend this book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, as a great book for sales. Why that book?
Because I think at the end of the day, the more hands you shake, the more money you make. Relationships are where all money comes from. So if you want more money, you need more relationships. And at the end of the day, that book's pretty good about teaching you how to build and nurture relationships.
I agree. Do you believe that people buy from people they like?
I mean, I don't think that's the key factor.
Yeah. A lot of people say that. That's a big thing in the book.
Well, I mean, again, that was a long time ago too. But,
True.
You know,
1936,
if I had
yeah.
the choice to buy from someone that I didn't like or someone that I liked, I'd prefer to buy it from someone I liked.
Do you think people buy from people they like or people who they trust can get them the best result?
It depends on what it is.
Well, let's say a Ferrari.
Well, I would rather
Do you
buy
buy from a like or somebody who you trust can get you the best deal
I would buy it from who I liked.
over the person you feel can
Yeah, I
get
mean,
you the best deal?
profit makes the world go around. I'm not a
Okay.
stickler for
Let's
price.
give you a different example. Let's say you're going to start, you're like, man, I want to get into an MLM. And your grandma has this MLM. She's not doing that well. She's doing okay. You love grandma, but then this other guy who you don't really know, you don't hate him, but you don't like him. You just don't know him. But he's like one of the top people. Who are you going to join? You love grandma, or are you going to join the guy that you don't really know, but you trust he can get you a better result?
Well, I'd probably sign up with grandma and
Yeah.
then pay the dude to teach me.
Yeah. Oh, you're trying to go rad. Yeah, because you trust.
No, I mean,
you trust he can get you the better result.
Well, it depends. Again, it depends.
Hey, coming back around.
No, the truth is, it depends because in some cases, I would prefer to buy it from the person I liked,
Of course.
but like not to the extent where I'm going to get screwed.
Sure.
Like I tell people, I like to, I'll bend over backwards for you, but I won't bend over forwards.
Yeah. Okay. That could be trouble. So you like your neighbor who's got the local hardware store, but you might not be buying from him. You might be buying from Amazon because you feel like they get you a better result. You don't love Jeffrey Bezos, but you trust Amazon gets you a better result. That's why things have changed since the 1930s, since that book is. And we see a lot of salespeople like, well, I'm just trying to get people to like me. Just trying
That's
to get
not
people
a
to
bad
like
thing, though.
It depends on how you get them to like you. Because if you're like trying to build the fake rapport that we know that most salespeople have been taught, some of it comes from books like that, like talk about the weather, talk about this. If you see a picture in the office, talk about that.
Well, that's small talk.
Well, prospects see through that.
Yes, they do.
That doesn't build trust.
No, it doesn't.
What do you feel like builds trust?
And I would rather buy someone that I trusted more than I liked.
Really?
Yeah.
You don't say.
Like if you were coming to my house,
Brilliant idea.
if you were coming to my house, I would need to trust that you won't kill me in the middle of the night, even if I like you, but I don't trust you. You're not coming over.
Well, it's the same thing. You're brilliant for saying that you'd buy something that you trust more than you like. I like that.
But not cut and dry like you're.
Well, if
trying.
all things are equal,
all things equal,
you
I'd
go with the
rather
person you like.
rather go with the person I trust.
yeah.
Rather than like I don't need to like you to buy shit from you. Like
But you don't want to hate. You're not going to buy from somebody you hate.
No, but like
Yeah.
for example, one time I was trying to buy something that there wasn't another one of. Well, I don't care if I like you or not. That's
You
what
gotta-
I'm.
you
That's
don't
what
have
I'm
a
here to
choice.
buy, and
Yeah.
and I'm going to buy it from the person who has it, whether I like you or trust you. If you have it, I want it,
Yeah.
and I'm going to buy it. So I think there's just there's. It's not always one way, but in general, I would agree
Yeah.
with you. Most people, they're not going to buy something from me that's 5 times the price because they like me.
Yeah, they're going to buy from the person they
Yeah,
trust
they'll go to
give them the better
Amazon,
result.
whether they like you or
Yeah.
not.
Yeah.
Who will give me the best deal?
Well, just like if two presidents came to you to start a business, and let's say that maybe you didn't really care about politics. Maybe like I don't care about politics. I know which way you are. I'm right in the middle. I can care
How
less.
am I?
We know.
No, we don't.
We know. We'll get into it. No, I don't care. I like the guy
a lot
you
of
voted
people
for.
just
I
assume.
think he's cool. I think he's
I know,
cool.
but you guys may all think you know, but and you might be
watched your
right.
show.
But what
No,
do you
there's
think?
nothing wrong with it.
I'm just saying.
So
what do you
let me give you
think,
an analogy.
though?
So let's say 2 people come to you to start a business.
Yeah.
One's President Trump, one's President Obama. Now, you might love President Obama. You're going to take him to the game. You're going to hang out with him. He's going to be your best friend because he's cool. But you don't necessarily, if he came to you with the business idea, you might be like, I don't know if I want to start a business though. He's like the friend that you love to hang out with, you like, but they came to a business idea, you're like, I don't know about that.
Well,
but
use
Trump comes
Biden.
to you. Okay. Trump comes to you. That's a different
Yeah, but
thing.
if you want to make a big
I don't know
difference,
I don't know many people like Biden.
Yeah,
a lot of people like Obama.
I would have
though.
done
He was
business with
cool.
Obama.
But I'm saying if Trump came to you and said, I want to start a business, you might not be like, I don't know about Trump. I'm not sure, but I trust he can get me a better result. See, that's a difference. You love Obama, you'd hang out with him, but you trust maybe Trump might be better at business. So you go with that route.
Well, again, with those two, I would trust that Obama could do some business too.
It depends on what type of business. Real estate.
Any kind of business. It's Obama.
Depends.
But
It
Biden,
depends.
no.
But if he's running the business, not just he's the brand, like he's going to run the business. You going to go with Obama to run the business or Trump to run the business?
Who?
To run the business. Like
Yeah,
they're going to
who?
be the
Who are the
CEO. You're going to
choices?
go, Obama's going to be the CEO and run the business, or Trump's going to run the business?
Yeah, between those two, again,
There you go.
Obama's okay.
Okay, but you trust Trump might be able to run the
not
business.
you're,
better.
you're
do.
trying to
Come
lead me
on
somewhere.
now. I know
That's not
you
true,
are.
dude. Obama, I liked Obama.
liked
I don't
him.
like all his policies, but I did like Obama.
Yeah, cool guy.
And again, Trump, I like Trump as a business person, which is who should be in the office.
Yeah.
But when you talk about that cackling Kamala, no.
Cackling about. I don't care.
Yeah,
Okay.
Biden, no. He didn't even know he was the president.
Could be trouble there.
But I see what you're trying to get at, and I would agree with you that, again, if you trust that one is going to do better result than the other, of course you're going to go with the person you trust more than just because you don't like them. Like I have people that I like, but they're also kind of inept.
They might be your friends. You love hanging out with them, but if they
Yeah,
got a
like-
business idea, you're like,
A lot of my family.
yeah. You
Like
love
I like
yeah.
them, but I would never do
Yeah.
business with them.
What do you feel like the number one thing is on how you build trust in a conversation? How do you build trust with a prospect in your mind?
I would say if you really want to learn that, you would take the n.e.p.q programming.
They're smart for you since we're on your platform.
Well, I mean, again, because you're teaching people emotional programming questions, and then with that information, you can build trust.
It's the emotional connection. Yeah, that
Yeah.
builds trust. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, but if you ask me, how do you build trust? Is you demonstrate that you're going to do the right thing and hook them up. But to get that first initial sale, it's hard. So I'd say study.
You got to get their guard down. It's a POV, perception of the value, not the value. It's how they perceive the value.
Yeah.
It's really important. There's a big difference. Like in your prospect's mind, as you know, let's say if you talk to these guys that sold solar, if you sell life insurance or cars or cybersecurity or whatever you're selling, in a prospect's mind, when you're talking to them, you kind of all seem the same because they don't know what you know, right? They hear from every salesperson that we're the best, we got this. So the salesperson who wins is the one who knows how to frame that offer better. It's the perception of
Yeah, like
the value.
when I say, well, maybe we're not the best. Tell me your problems first, and then I can tell you if maybe we fit. Like that builds trust.
Yeah.
Because I'm
right?
not just trying to sell you; I'm trying to help you.
They feel like they can trust you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But hardcore sales guys, they just want to get in there and my shit's the best. When in reality, may not be. You haven't even asked any questions.
Yeah, you don't know. And people resist that typically. They're used to that pattern, right?
Yeah.
Our brains recognize patterns, right? So we resist that. It's how do we calm the nervous system, those type of things. How do we get that nervous system to relax, open up emotionally? That's where it's at.
That's how you build it.
That's how you build the trust. Okay. What do you, so you built this big brand. You've got millions of followers on social media. When did you start doing that? When were you like, hey, I'm going to start doing these reels? Because I remember when I first did my course and when I first started my thing, 2019 or something, you're like, you should get on social media. You should do these reels. I'm like, dude, I don't even have an Instagram account. What are you talking about? It took me like 3 years. I didn't do my first reel till January of 2022. I didn't have an Instagram account until then.
Yeah.
I had no idea. Where did you see that where you're like, I need to build this brand. I need to get on social media. Like what caused you to be like, this is going to help me scale?
It was like 2017, maybe 18.
Yeah. And what caused that? Like what
Well,
what did you see?
I was watching Grant Cardone,
Yeah.
and he kept popping up on everything 100 times a day.
Yeah.
And one day I called him and I said, dude, you got to quit like pitching your shit so much. Like it's not good. You're going to hurt us.
Yeah.
It's going to ruin your brand.
Yeah.
And he didn't listen. He just kept doing it. And so I called him one day and I said, bro, I'm going to have to unfollow you, dude. And he said, go ahead. You ain't buying nothing.
I've heard this story. Yeah.
And so I started, we'd be somewhere and the people were wanting pictures and he was like getting celebritized.
Yeah.
And I'm like, damn, dude. And then I watched how he converts that attention into revenue.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, I need to do that.
Yeah.
So I just started doing it myself.
I've met a lot of influencers that have millions of followers that are broke though. So
Yeah,
there's a
know.
difference between getting a lot of followers and actually getting the right followers who are people that are going to buy your stuff, right? So you can grow. So you're solving problems. How does somebody do that? How does somebody have that fine line where you grow your social media, but you're growing it to people who need your stuff? Because that's a very unique balance.
Yeah. Well, I think first get some followers, right? But ultimately, how you monetize that following should be based on obviously what your expertise is and how you can help people. But you need to get followers to begin with. So the other day, we're at dinner, and my wife sees someone that she thinks she went to high school with. She's like, I think that's some guy named Bobby or something.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, Bobby, trying to get his attention, and she's like embarrassed. And whoever Bobby was with, some girl, keeps looking over, and my wife's thinking it's because I'm making noise. And when we got up to leave, I said, hey, go see if that's the guy. And she's like, no, I don't want to say anything. So I walked over and I said, Bobby? He's like, yeah. And then my wife comes over. Oh yeah, it was.
That's
him.
a good facial expression, familiar tone. Well done.
But it was him.
Good, man.
It was
You're
him,
getting
and
better.
the girl stands up, and my wife thought the whole time she was staring because I was being loud.
Yeah.
But she said, I told you it was him. And so she told Bobby, I told you that was him.
Yeah.
And then Bobby says, oh yeah. And then she said, yeah, she was telling me that you're the relationship guy. And I said, relationship guy?
Yeah.
How am I a relationship guy? But that's what she follows me for, is because of my relationship advice.
Okay.
So now I'm a relationship guy, which clearly doesn't monetize because I don't
monetize
have a
for you.
relationship course.
Yeah.
So when you want to monetize it, your content should be at least 80% relevant to what it is you do.
Yeah.
So if I'm a landscaper, I want to give people value in regards to landscaping.
Yeah.
So I become known as the landscaping expert or guy.
You're 100% right. What you just said is brilliant. What he just said, this is very important. I was talking to Hormozy maybe a month ago about this, and he said when he blew up on social media, one of his biggest reels where he got like maybe 200,000 followers like in a couple of days was about like his favorite burrito recipe. And then a year later, they went back and tracked the data from all those followers who followed him that day. Guess how many of them bought anything from Alex a year later? Zero.
Yeah.
Wrong type of followers. So he's right. If all you're doing is like stuff that has nothing to do with what you do, you might gain a lot of following, but that doesn't mean you're going to make any money from that.
Well, but you can still. You would just have to figure out what that audience wants and fill it.
Well, I'm just saying, let's say if you have an expertise in something, the biggest thing I see people that are experts do, or somewhat experts do, a huge mistake is that, this year they're coming out with the crypto thing and they're an expert. Then 2 years later, now they're like an expert in Forex trading. And 2 years later, now they're a dating expert. And it confuses the market because they don't really know who they are. So you want to put horse blinders on and just go all in the thing that you really are an expert on and learn more and keep getting better at that. But I see so many people start going down like different paths and they become the master of nothing. Huge mistake.
I would agree.
Yeah.
So depending on the business that you're in, I think you should do 80-20.
Yeah.
So 80% relevant, which leads to monetization, and then 20%, thoughts and opinions.
Sure.
Because if you don't, you want the way the social media works is I think is perfect, is because if you say something like, hey, I'm for Trump, and people are like, unfollow, you didn't want them following you anyway. Because if you are for Trump, guess what? Then be proud and stand up. But at the end of the day, the way the world works is if you just become authentically you, right? With that, in that 20%, it'll filter out the rest that you don't really want following.
Even that 20%, you can still talk about your thing, but in a more generalized way. So we do the same thing. It's probably 75% just pure on sales training. Hey, prospect says this, do this. And then another 25% is is something about maybe influence or persuasion, or like, we might talk about like, I dropped out of, school my last semester because I was, making so much money in sales because of this. And it's more of a personal story. I might talk about like, hey, if your kid, needs help here, you could say this to, it has to do with influence, but in a more broad way to get a broader audience. But it still has something to do with that. I'm not talking about, my favorite teapot.
Well, if I were to coach you on building a brand, I would say you need a little more, Jeremy.
Really?
Yeah.
What would you
All
want
I
to
ever
see?
see from you is sales training shit.
Do you know how much we monetize?
Do you
from
have a
that, though?
dog? Do you have
We
a dog?
monetize that a lot.
I know, if that's your
Big.
goal.
Well,
But-
it's usually with a business's goal.
Yes, but do you have a dog?
I do not have a dog.
See, I didn't know
My
that.
daughter has a dog.
See, I didn't know that. I didn't even know you had a daughter.
Yeah. So you want to see more of the dog.
I want to see more of you. I want to see more of Jeremy, because believe it or not, dude, there's literally a whole audience that does want
You
sales
haven't been
training.
paying attention the last couple of months. We've been doing more of that stuff.
Well, again, I'm busy. But if
Just trying to be cool.
based on what I've seen from you, you do like almost 100% like relevant.
We shifted probably about 3-4 months ago. We do about 75-25.
Yeah. So when that starts to permeate out in the world, you'll find that you'll get some follower because of the dad you are,
Sure.
that nobody knows about.
Sure.
And then they realize what you do, and then they buy, where they never would have followed you because they thought, oh, he's just trying to sell me sales training. You're just another one of those gurus. Because there's so many, yackers out there.
Sure.
They just have a guard up for all of it.
Yeah.
But where you get those people is the authentic you.
I like
the fact that
so
you're,
you think 75-25, 80-20.
yeah,
It's good for everybody here.
80, 20, 75, 25.
Yeah.
That's a good ratio.
I like that.
My when I started, it was more 80 nonsense and actually 95 nonsense, maybe even 100% nonsense.
Yeah. You
And
grow pretty quick with that.
well, now I'm starting to go the 80-20. So you'll start seeing me say a little bit more relevant things.
yeah.
The,
Because now you're going to get the right type of followers that are interested in your stuff.
or they'll
as
just
well.
monetize a lot more.
Yeah. Oh, for
Yeah.
sure. What's some of the worst business advice you see that's being promoted online right now? One of the worst business advice you see people promote. That's just total bullshit.
I don't know.
You do. Come on. What's one of the worst advice? Worst advice.
It doesn't stick in my head when I hear it. So it's like,
Somebody tell me, what's some worst advice you guys see online where you're just like, man, that's just total BS. Like worst business advice you see. I want to see what you guys manifest it. Okay, what does manifest it mean? Would you say that manifest is bad advice, or would you say that's good advice? I can manifest
depends on
anything.
how they're-
I can manifest anything I want in my life. If I believe it, I can do it.
within reality.
Are you talking about like just more like The Secret or something like that? Like, I'm going to think about the check in the mail. It's going to come in the mail without doing anything about it.
I think about the woo-woo people that sit down and they like get in the trees and they repeat, I'm going to make sales, I'm going to make sales, I'm going to make sales without any actual items or a to-do list or a team to help them out. Like that kind of thing. You see a lot of that at least.
What do you see?
about that?
Yeah.
I believe that there are people that do need that because they don't believe in themselves. And if you want to raise your net worth, you have to raise your self-worth.
Yeah.
You're never going to outperform your own self-image. So if you have to go chant in the woods to like yourself more, then
Do you believe
then,
that really changes you though? Because, Sigmund Freud said it best, people do who they believe they are, meaning people make decisions based on their identity of the person who they believe they are. So if you deep down in your core believe you are not worthy, if you believe that I can't really be successful, it doesn't matter all the chanting in the world, you're still going to have that inner core belief.
yeah,
And you'll
but
never
like-
do anything. That's why people go to personal development events all the time, yet never do anything with it.
Well, I agree with what you said, but you guys like to fill in the gaps, and the gaps are where the truth lies. There are some people that chanting will subconsciously seep in and get them to change.
Can it though?
Well, sure it can.
By just saying stuff?
Words are powerful.
Your words are powerful to your brain, for sure. Like
Self-talk is usually most people's
so
biggest
basically
problem.
what they're doing in that case is they're changing their identity based on they're reprogramming their brain based on their words. Okay, that would make sense to me. The woo
Chalk
stuff
one up for
sometimes
Brad.
doesn't make sense. Hey, Brad, boom, I like
got
it.
one.
I like that. You
Yeah,
got
but I
me
mean,
on
again,
that.
a lot of it's fluff, but like manifestation, I totally believe in it, and I've done it many times. And it's not as fluffy as some people say, like, sit in the trees and chant.
Yeah.
Well, you got to sit in the trees and chant for a long ass time.
Yeah.
But that's not going to bring you any wealth. You have to get out of the trees and then apply.
You got to do something. You got to learn skills, right? Skills pay the bills.
But there's truth to subconscious. That's why they call it subconscious, below awareness.
Yeah.
And if you're not aware that you don't like yourself or that you're, not worthy, then you have to like get yourself back out of that. And a lot of it is mental. It's your thought process, your self-talk, but it's also your actions.
Yeah.
So most people seek validation from others because they don't validate themselves, which is why they can't be authentic online. That's why they create content instead of be the content. So I think if you really truly want to like become more confident, let's say.
Well, it's who you're learning that stuff from. Like if you're learning it from like let's say Wayne Dyer, who's already passed away, or like a Tony Robbins, and I'm reprogramming my mind based off like scientific research. That's one thing compared to
affirmations.
Just affirmations. Affirmations don't necessarily do that much. It might help a little bit, but it might not change your entire identity. You're only going to do things and take action based on the identity of the person who you believe you are.
Yeah.
It's like Alcoholics Anonymous. If you're like, I've been sober for 30 years. I'm an alcoholic. I've been sober for 30 years. Your identity is still that you're an alcoholic. And that's why most of those people relapse. Because their identity is, I'm still an alcoholic. I've been sober for 30 years. That is their identity. Rather than like, I just don't want to drink anymore. Different identity.
Well, how do you change your identity?
Well, you build yourself into that identity. A lot of it is what you're putting in your brain, the words, what you read, and then what you do, because then you gain more confidence. The more knowledge you gain, the more confidence you gain in that subject, right? If you're a neurosurgeon and you cheat your way through medical school, how much confidence are you going to have in your surgery? Not that much confidence. If you're a salesperson, that doesn't really know anything, you get on the phone, you don't have that much confidence, right? But still, we could teach you the best word tracks, the best frames, the best, how to overcome this objection. But if you have this deep core belief that you're not worthy, that if they don't buy, that means I'm bad, or God doesn't love me, or whatever. If you have that belief system, that identity, whatever we teach you doesn't come out with certainty. It comes out with uncertainty, and it's not going to work as well.
Yeah. Well, I think because ultimately it affects your energy, your vibrational frequency.
Yeah. Your physiology.
We all have a frequency. You agree?
I believe so. Yeah.
Good. Science would disagree.
What would you describe as frequency, though? Because I hear that word. I think people have different
vibrational
interpretations.
frequency.
Like your energy? Your
how
energy.
would you
describe it?
Exactly. Your energy.
Yeah. Would you say that's your physiology, how your body moves?
It's your vibe. It's your vibration.
Would you say that's just your certainty, though? Like when you talk, I have certainty. I'm the expert.
That can affect vibrational frequency. Yes, if you're uncertain, if you're lying, just like when you see somebody and they're mad and you go, what's wrong? Well, how did you know something was wrong? Their facial expressions, which is literally part of that energy.
Yeah.
But what people don't realize is like, in my mind, there's two energies. There's heavenly energy, right? That's kindness and generosity and confidence and courage and all that. Then there's earthly energy. That's the anger and the greed and the envy and the doubt and the worry and all that.
I love that.
So how do you vibrate in heavenly energy versus earthly energy? And the answer, I believe, is you choose. You choose the difference.
That's probably what you put in your mind, though, that chooses that. Yeah.
Well, that will definitely.
Because if you're influenced, you are who you associate yourself with. That old saying, right? If you're around as a kid people that are getting into drugs, like in gangs and that stuff, more than likely, that's who your identity is. So your identity says, I'm going to do the same things, compared to, if you're raised in a different environment, your identity might cause you to have more of that heavenly trait.
Well, like if you got in my car and I was playing rap music and you hated it and you liked country, you'd reach over and just change the frequency.
You can choose. Some people don't really understand that they have that choice based on how they were raised. That's their
right.
belief system.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so there's the key, though.
Yeah.
If people realize it's just a choice, and then you convince them who makes your choices,
Yeah.
which they go, I do. Well, but do you? Because a lot of people let their emotions choose, and that's where it gets dangerous. So if you realize it's just a
scientifically,
choice,
your emotions do choose, not logic.
well,
I feel like picking up this piece of paper. I feel like a drink of water. I feel like talking to you right now. Every decision starts with your emotional side of your brain.
not if you're in control.
I'm just going with science.
What's that?
Just going with science. Like if your emotional side of your brain gets damaged.
Yeah, but
let's say
science hasn't studied everyone.
Okay, let's say you're in a war. Your emotional side of your brain gets damaged. You're actually scientifically a vegetable. You can't decide that you want to go to the bathroom. You can't decide you want to drink. You can't make any
We're
decision.
not talking about brain damage.
I'm just talking about like
I'm talking about a normal person. If I walked
but
into
you
the
make
room,
decisions emotionally than just with logic.
yeah, but if I walked into the room and said something offensive to your audience and they got mad, I didn't get them mad. They chose to be mad because you
that's different.
choose that shit.
Yeah.
So you can also choose to be happy. And
Emotionally, they chose that though. They chose their emotions.
their
chose that.
emotions
Yeah.
made
Yeah,
their
we
choice.
agree.
But who makes the choice? You do. And I use this analogy. Imagine, let's say you're a gamer. Do you play games?
Maybe Skippo.
Skippo.
Yeah, Skippo, the card games. Me and the kids play
What the fuck is
Skippo.
that?
Who plays Skippo? Be honest.
That's like
Uno,
he don't play
Okay, we got
bingo,
some
he
hands.
plays
we
bunco.
got some hands here. No, we play chess over here, not checkers, man.
Yeah.
We're not checker players.
Do you play
chess.
chess?
I do play chess.
I'd like to play you.
How good are you?
I don't know. Not very good, but
Nah, I'm not that
like
good
I'm like on chess.com, I'm rated like a 760.
I'm fairly decent. I'm okay. We'll play sometime.
But this is important. So pay attention, folks, because ultimately, if someone can get this down, they level up big time. They have to understand there's heavenly energy and there's earthly energy, and the energy that you emit is the energy that you get. So if you want to get good things, you have to be a good person. So the energy that you're vibrating in is obviously affected by your environment.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, there's an event, then there's a response, then there's the outcome. A lot of people think there's an event and then there's an outcome. They're missing the response part. So like when I wake up in the morning, the first thing I want to do is choose a heavenly energy.
Okay.
So I choose gratitude. So I wake up realizing that there's nothing, I mean, I just got the best gift ever because I get the day.
Do you ever wake up and you just had a bad day the day before? You just get up, you're just not in a great mood.
Never.
The real Bradley?
Never.
How long's it been since you've not been in a bad mood?
Shit, probably 10 years.
10 years.
Yeah,
What
because you got
shifted for
if
you
I gave
10 years
everybody
ago?
here $1 million before I left, how would you feel?
I
Would
don't
you be
know.
excited? Would you be enthusiastic?
It depends.
Would you feel relief?
But it depends.
I
What
know,
if
but
they call
listen.
their CPA real quick and the CPA's half that's going to go government? You're like, shit.
Well, that's pessimistic. So that's what we're working on right now.
Okay.
So
All right. It depends.
I know, but again, it does depend on your mindset. So at the end of the day, if I gave everyone $1 million, they would be pumped up, they'd be enthusiastic, they'd be excited, they'd feel relief, they'd be just overall grateful. Well, if I said you can't wake up tomorrow, who would take the $1 million? Nobody. So you value waking up more than you do $1 million. Well, then why don't you feel like that every day you wake up? Because it's worth more. So when I wake up, I already know that I've already hit the jackpot.
Yeah.
Right? Because life itself is the gift. So when I get another day, I'm extremely grateful. That's me choosing. I could choose to be pissed off that I just got a stupid email. I could choose that Johnny 619 doesn't like my post.
Yeah.
But I don't care. Right? So,
Yeah,
I choose gratitude. I
Sure.
choose it.
You
It's
don't
a
let
choice.
little
You can
things
choose to
bother
be
you.
grateful or you can choose to be hateful. It's
Yeah.
a choice.
Because you're letting all that stuff bother you, it's very hard to be successful.
And when you don't realize it's as simple
Yeah.
as a choice, because there's a lot of people that allow things to piss them off and get
Yeah.
them depressed and get them fearful and doubtful and envious and
Pulls
angry.
you down, right? How can you think big things do big things if you're worried about little stupid stuff like somebody's comment that you don't even know?
Right.
Yeah.
Or
because that
you-
says more about them than you, because obviously if they took the time to make a negative comment about something they don't even know, they've obviously got something emotional going on with themselves.
yeah, and
has
if you
nothing to do
seek
with you.
validation from others because you can't validate yourself, then you should probably
Exactly.
do some work and change that.
Exactly.
But at the end of the day, it's a choice, and I choose heavenly energy. And I just use heavenly because, like, imagine what's there. It's probably all good shit.
Where do you believe we go when we die?
What?
Where do you believe we go when we die?
What?
Where do you believe we go when we die? Yeah.
Well, it's not everybody.
Where do you believe? Well, where do you believe just people go in general if they've been good?
I think they go. I don't know.
I like that answer.
Yeah,
Does anybody really know? Because if you said heaven,
yeah. Everyone who died
where
knows.
is heaven? Is it like up in the sky?
For
Is
me,
it
it's at home with
on
my
a different
family.
planet? Where's heaven? Where do you believe heaven is?
I don't know,
I don't know either.
but
That's
I
what
do.
I think it's great
But
about
I
it.
do believe that when you die, it's not over. Like I think
Well,
your
I'm with
body
you.
dies, and
Yeah.
then your soul.
Your consciousness,
moves
your
on.
soul, yeah. Yeah. Have you always had that belief?
Yeah.
Mm.
I mean, I think again, I don't know.
Mm.
So at least I can admit that I don't know,
Yeah.
because who does? You know,
Yeah.
unless you're already dead, and then you can't tell us.
That's true.
But I think
You got to keep it. You got to sign an NDA when you die. You're not.
well,
coming
if you
back.
believe
Only
in
Christ
the
came back.
quantum, right? Then you energy doesn't cease. You know, it just transforms. So
A lot of people talk about consciousness doesn't cease. Would you say that's your spirit? Same thing as consciousness?
Well, have you ever been
I don't
knocked
know.
unconscious?
I have not known.
That's why you don't think it ceases. You know, you can lose consciousness. But
A lot of people in quantum physics talk about your consciousness never ceases, though. That's where I'm getting that from.
when I'm asleep, dude, I'm unconscious. I'm not. I don't know where it went.
Well, it's still there. It still lives. I don't know.
Does
what
it?
does. I don't know.
So maybe
Nobody
it doesn't.
knows.
But I
That's
think
why life is so fun.
I think it's energy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we are all energy, and if you're so scientific, you'll
I'm
agree.
not scientific. I'm
Well,
just
science
kinda
will
right
tell
here.
you that
Yeah.
we are all vibrating at a frequency,
Mm-hmm.
and deep down, everything here is vibrating. Like
The
we are in a
plants, grass,
motion
everything.
we're in an ocean of motion, as they say.
Mm.
And so there is a vibrational frequency to everybody, and
Mm-hmm.
that frequency attracts like frequency.
Mhm.
So I'm just hedging my bet that if that's the case,
Mhm.
right, and that's what they say is true,
Yeah.
well, then I'm choosing a heavenly energy, kindness, generosity, honesty, truth, like the good stuff.
So it puts you like in a better emotional
It
state
seems to be working
receive.
for me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
I
so,
would agree.
and so like, I don't find myself upset
Yeah.
and depressed and,
Yeah.
and anxious and fearful. I find myself happy.
Yeah, because people don't want to be around somebody anxious and fearful, right? That energy repels. I love that.
Well, imagine like, let's say there is a God and he loves you as much as they say.
Mhm.
And he says to you, you know what? I love you so much. I'm going to give you more of whatever you choose.
Mm.
So you choose to be fearful. Here, let me give you some shit to be fearful about.
Mm.
You choose anger. Hey, let me just stack up some of that shit so you get more of what you're choosing. I love
Yeah.
you so much. I'm going to give you whatever you choose.
Yeah.
And we're choosing to be depressed, and we're choosing to be angry, and we're choosing to be envious. Why would you make that choice
I think the dark side influences you to make those choices because it holds you back from your potential.
if you're not in control?
The dark side tells you you're not in control.
Again, influence only
Yeah.
works if you're
If you allow it.
influenceable.
I agree.
So imagine if
Wouldn't you say anybody's influenceable?
who plays games?
Oh, let's.
Call of Duty, anybody? Well, again, find me online. I'll kill you. It's LightSpeed VT, but the second L is a small L. It looks like Lightspeed with an I, but it's LLGHTSPEED VT. That's me.
I love
Anyway, and that's why
Okay.
they say people in the guru, you can't play games and succeed. Bullshit.
Yeah.
You can't half-ass it and succeed. Yes, you can.
Can't watch TV and succeed.
You can't
I'm like,
smoke
I watch
weed.
Ancient
Yes, you
Aliens.
can.
Been pretty successful.
It's not that difficult to succeed, folks. I'm telling you, all you got to do is like change your energy, change your mindset, get your skill sets leveled up, and have the right habits.
Yeah.
If you do that, it's very difficult to lose.
It's hard to fail.
Well, if your
It's hard to
mindset's
fail.
positive, but you're average, you're probably still susceptible to failure. Why? Because you're average, man.
You
Get
don't have
better.
the skills. Everybody can get better.
Yeah, like go study n.e.p.q, get so good at it you can, battle him, and I'll bet you anything you're making more money than you are if you didn't.
Sure.
But the scarcity-based people or the limited fixed mindset people, they don't think it's that easy when in reality it is. It's just study his shit and practice it and go through repetition and practice. And it might take you 10 years, but guess what? It is possible. So when you level up your mindset first, then you level up your skill set at whatever you want to do, and then you level, and then you focus on your habits, because habits will get you. You could be positive, you could be really talented, but do coke every day, dude. That's not going to end well.
That's a bad habit.
It's a bad habit. So your habits can screw you too. But those three things, if you get your mindset right, you get your skill sets down, and you get your habits pristine, dude, you can't be stopped.
It's commitment to mastery.
That's right.
Everybody that is great at any profession, somebody who wings it, somebody who dabbles in it, somebody who thinks they know everything, or the person is committed to mastery. I think we all know the answer.
Well, committed is the key.
Commitment to mastery, because that's your identity, your commitment to mastery. So you do the things that a person does who does master something, who becomes the best.
So it starts with the mindset, in my opinion, and here's why. Let's say you're a gamer and I gave you a big screen and a killer couch and the surround sound and all the games were unlocked and you got all the guns and all the tokens and all the levels and everything you can imagine. And then I said, here you go. And you're all excited. And then I leave and you look around and there's no controller.
Yeah.
What good is any of that with no controller?
Yeah.
You're sitting there going, son of a
You don't
bitch.
have a plan. You don't know what to do.
Well, it doesn't matter if you had a plan or knew what to do. There's no controller.
Yeah.
Without a controller, all that shit's worthless.
Very true.
Well, if you look at all that shit as your potential, your life, it's all there. It's all unlocked. All you got to do is get the controller.
Yeah.
And the controller is your mind.
Yeah.
It's your ability to make decisions, and the decisions to stop at 5 o'clock, the decisions to not do the work, the decisions to allow other people to influence you negatively.
Yeah.
All of those are really, at the end of the day, decisions. You're making decisions.
Yeah.
If you're broke, you're deciding to be broke. If you are out of shape, you are deciding to be out of shape.
Yeah.
And most people say, no, I'm not. I got a thyroid issue. Having a thyroid issue does not eliminate you from being in shape. It just means you might have to work harder than the person that doesn't have a thyroid issue. But the choice is still yours.
Yeah.
And I'm the one that makes my choice, and so are you, and so is everybody here.
It's changing the words, because if somebody doesn't have money and they're like, I'm poor, well, that's an identity rather than like just saying like, I don't have money right now. That's not an identity. I just don't have the money. But if I say I'm poor, that's your identity. So you're going to make the decisions and do the things poor people do.
That's
Big
right.
difference. How can people, we're going to open it up for Q&A here in a second before you have to get back to your flight. How can people learn more about what you do? Maybe there's something like that's got some skill. They want to put it out to the world, message. They want to get, build a course. How can they learn more about what you do?
Well, I do a lot. But if you want to build courses, you want to obviously deliver good content with repetition, practice, and accountability. And the LightSpeed system allows you to do that. So I'd go to LightSpeed. And a lot of people are like, why LightSpeed? Well, number one, interactivity allows you to embed offers in your content, and it increases conversion like it's going out of style. Because like if you get into marketing, you realize there's open rates and click-through rates and then close rates. Well, if you embed the offer in the video itself, you get 100% open rate, 100% click-through rate, and therefore you have a much higher conversion. And we've proven that time and time again. But if you're going to build a course, use LightSpeed. But
where do they go? Like, is there a website? Do they need to follow you? Where do they go first?
yeah, go to lightspeedvt.com or just
lightspeedvt.com.
Google Brad Lee.
Google Brad Lee. Everybody get it for Brad.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for coming in here. Yeah.
Appreciate you.